Welcome everyone to today's Midnight training session. Today we'll be looking at Midnight version 6.6's pricing system. In particular, we'll be looking at how to handle pricing setup for the admin or global level for your services. We'll be identifying how to make modifiers that can adjust them in our wizard submenu. We'll look up how to set up volume discounts and other custom pricing logic within customer level pricing found within the CRM and also contract pricing. We'll take a brief look at our group billing system, which is a method of invoice customization within orders. And finally, we'll take a look at how some defaults can be set up in the admin menu to change who can see what, as well as other modifiers that can affect pricing in a variety of smaller ways. To start things off, as far as pricing goes in Midnight, there are two areas which you can account for general pricing, one of which would be in an estimate and the other in the order. If you're in an estimate, then your pricing is something that you can see right when you select your service within any of the corresponding drop-down menus under the department in which your services are located. The price that you see listed here is the base price of the service. If you're not referencing a print calculator, then this base price comes from the admin menu, or if there's custom pricing assigned to the customer that you selected for this estimate or order, then their prices will be listed instead. If you were to select one of these services, for instance, one that says no action for the price, and that base price is carried in, and if there's a volume discount, then that discount would be applied. Until a volume discount occurred, because for our service we had a price that was different than the unit price that was carried in. One other thing to be aware of is that as far as your pricing goes, you'll notice that the quantity has defaulted to the expected quantity from our expected quantity tab here under the details menu. If you select a service with a unit price of a value that is lower than $1, then the quantity will default to that unit price. If instead you select a service with with a base price that is greater than $1, then the quantity will default to 1. The other information that we see that can affect the unit price within this line item as we select it include the setup fee. If there is a setup fee, you'll see that there's a prompt here that lets you know that there is one. If you select a service with a setup fee, then that setup fee will be added into the cost total for the extended price column. You can also see what that setup fee may be if there is one by looking in the details of the service, knowing that this is carried in from the admin menu. Other handlers for pricing come from the wizard. If you select the service and the launch action states that there is a wizard, then what will happen is when you select your service, the base price will be loaded in to a pop-out, which appears here. This wizard will take the base price of the service, and then based on each choice that you make, can be set to adjust it based on a defined value that you can set up in the admin menu. After you finish making all of your choices, the unit price will list itself. And if you need to make any adjustments to the wizard, you can enter the details of the service with the wand icon here and go back through the wizard choices again. Now, there are times that a service may have a minimum price. What that means is that if the quantity times the unit price does not exceed the minimum price of the service, then that minimum price is applied. This is a great way to prevent yourself from accidentally having a service set up and then applied with too low of a cost. If you set up the service with a minimum price, you won't be told if there is one. However, if it does apply, then you'll see your extended price defaults to that value. And finally, if you need to do anything to update your unit price or your extended price, where the system does calculate everything for you, you can manually override either of these values with the value of your choice. You note that if you do this and you have pricing options that may trigger a volume price check or something else, then you'll be given a prompt that asks if you want to confirm that you are indeed changing the price. Depending on how you make the change. If you do that, you'll see that the unit price becomes what you enter it as, but the base price is still referenced to the original service. So that way, if you need to go back to the way it was, this number is still stored here for you to reference. For your wizard services, the base price will account for the service's base price plus any of the wizard options that you would have selected. And for a standard action service, it doesn't do anything. It just defaults to the base price in the admin menu with any volume discount code. At this point, we are within an estimate, which does have a couple of other pricing methods. In each department, you can apply a percentage discount. This can be useful when adjusting quotes, as if you have to apply a discount to a service or group of services that doesn't already have one. You can do so in here. If you select and provide in your discount, you can click Apply Discount. Midnight will ask if you want to confirm that you want to apply this discount to all services within the tab that you're in. When you click Yes, the discount will be applied. You won't see the discount listed in the details of the service, but you will see an adjustment made to the unit price. Again, noting that the base price will remain its original value. If you wish to do it the other way, you can opt to do this differently, in which you can add a negative in front of the discount and simulate a markup. If you do this and then click Apply Discount, you'll be asked again if you want to apply it, but you'll see the prices will go up because we are using a negative value to increase the price. You note that if you do this, you have to do it in each tab within an estimate if you want this to apply to all of your services. And you don't necessarily have to do each one if you don't need to. You may have only certain services that you'd like to apply discounts to. For instance, you make people rush charge and a delivery fee static, but your print service work may need to be discounted. This system allows you to do just that. The other method of accommodating pricing within the estimate screen comes from the Multiple Quantities tab. In here, you can set up multiple different quantity values with which to prepare a document with. For instance, if your customer is asking what the cost or price would be for a couple of different quantity batches, plug in your quantity values and then click the Update Pricing button. This will save your estimate and also generate prices for the services that you've got. Running through any volume price checks from the admin or customer level to make sure that your pricing calculates out to what it should be. And note that where you can see the original pricing for each service within its respective tab, for these other ones, you can click the Edit button to see what the price is per piece of each individual task, service, etc. see some of my unit prices in here are blue. This comes from a handful of different features that can be applied to your services regardless of what department they're in. In this case, under my prep department, we could see I had services in because of the green underline. The unit price is blue on both of these. This is because I've frozen the price. What this means is that with a frozen price, I cannot change the factors of unit and extended price. If I modify the quantity, then you'll see that the unit price doesn't try to recalculate itself. Additionally, if I click into the extended price and try to recalculate it by adding a new value, I get a warning that tells me I cannot. This can be done by right-clicking the service and selecting either freeze unit price or freeze extended price. If you freeze the extended price, then this means that if you were to adjust your unit price, if you were to adjust your quantity, then if a minimum price or something else were to trigger in, the unit price will recalculate itself by reverse calculation from the extended price divided by quantity. And it's pretty much the same thing for your unit price lock. The final thing to consider when looking at the general pricing for your services, at least in this stage, comes from the ability to quickly enter those services. Where you may need to select and fill out details of your service frequently, and you may have a service with a heavy or large series of wizard choices. You can click the copy button. What this will do is it will duplicate that service, meaning that you don't need to set up the different details for that service frequently. One example of this, maybe if you need to set up business cards for a service. If you're printing a series of business cards for one organization, they're going to several different people, and you want to identify that each count of business cards comes with a different fee. You can quickly copy that service and all the details and just update the service description here. They're easy to identify, but you didn't have to spend the time re-entering each individual component. And from this point, we'll hit save and close, and we'll come back in here later to look at a few other things. At this point, we'll take a look at the services within an order. Services in the order screen are a bit more simplified compared to the estimate. But the estimate assumes that you're going to potentially use the multiple quantity tab or the percentage discount handler in order to change the pricing to meet the needs of your customer. The order itself doesn't have those. The logic with the quantity is still referenced when trying to set up your prices, and any locks made by freezing the price, be it unit or extended, still remain the same. Again, the details of the service also remain the same, allowing us to see the base price and the entered in or calculated unit price. The difference that we see in the order screen comes from the ability to customize how an invoice would present itself to your client. Where you can create an invoice that shows the pricing of the individual services. You can also create an estimate that does pretty much the same thing, just with the title or header line of estimate up in the upper right. And if you have a multi-quantity, you can have a breakout in a handful of ways. In the order itself, you have under your Quick Links tab a group billing. In here, what you can do is you can consolidate services into a single line or just a fewer amount of lines. So that way you can bill your customer in a different way. For instance, by consolidating all of your services into one or two for print work and for shipping. In this case, I have two services on my job, which has a total of 97.9. I create one group here. You can just call it data work. I can set the quantity to reference a number that is utilized on one of these services, or I can type in a value of my own. I can set pricing up to reference either a per thousand or a per piece cost. And I can pick and choose that I want both of these services to consolidate into this service group. Where on the left, we are actually manipulating some of the data. On the right is where we see the information in a sort of standardized template or free view mode. And clicking refresh here, you'll see my data work group now exists. My quantity is 250 that we selected. My unit of measure is a per piece cost, and my unit price is the sum total of the extended prices of these two services divided by the quantity. If you have several different groups, and you can have 2, 3, up to any amount that you need groups, so that way you can bill in a variety of ways, either by version, by work type, by billing location, or any other methods of billing that you can think of. Additionally, if you were to select a per thousand option, then you'll see that your unit price has been adjusted. That way your per thousand cost is utilized, which is effectively just a decimal adjustment on the unit price. Clicking Save and Close commits this to the job, and if you were to copy this order out to a new order, then that pricing can be carried in with it. Additionally, where we saw the report that we looked at, the standardized invoice that had each individual line listed out, we can look at one of our group billing invoices. Look at invoice price group billing here. And here we can see our data works service consolidation with a quantity of 250 and the pricing all carried in. Now there's some other ways to account for how services are calculated, but they all start from the admin menu, in which you can select under the standard services submenu either one service to modify or add a new one by going to the quick link and then filling out the details for that service. To create a new service, we can start by giving our service a service name and code. This does make things a little bit confusing for you as the user, but the service description that we saw in the estimate and order screen, and by that I mean the column of description, which you can see right here, references the service name. The service code is what you'll see referenced in this service dropdown. You can modify the code within the admin menu only. So you can modify the name or description to your heart's desire from this or from the details of the line item. And we just switch it here as well. And again, these are referencing the service name. The service type determines where your service appears. So that way, one, you can select it in the correct location, and two, if you make one of those percentage discounts or markups, then you're applying it to a service that you expect it to actually be applied to. In this case, I'll create a service for consulting. Give it a code that just helps it stand out. And note that this code can be whatever you'd like, but if you want it to be translate nicely into your accounting system of choice, you'll want to make sure that your name and your code at least follow some form of easily interpreted consistency. The options that we see up here for outside service simply help define whether or not your service is a buyout or something that you get from a vendor versus an internally performed and processed service, such as a printed, folded, or cut service that you use your own technology for. We have a couple of reports that will look at this outside service information to help determine profit. Let's make sure to fill that out accordingly when ready. The taxable checkbox determines whether or not the service is taxable. If a service is taxed, then its price won't change, but taxes will update based on the tax code and jurisdictions that you apply to your estimate or order, and will reference the unit price of the service times the quantity to give you an accurate tax total. The GLID and item code relate more to the accounting aspect, which is something we don't necessarily discuss in today's training. However, do note that you do need to make sure these map correctly to your correct departments or chart of accounts within QuickBooks or Peachtree or whatever your accounting program is. That way, when you extract information out of Midnight, it all goes to the correct account. If you have a service that you want to have something done with, then you want to plug a service action of launching a service wizard or something else. If nothing needs to happen, then they can have a no launch action. If a wizard needs to come up, they can have a wizard selected to appear. And we have 3 different print calculators which can appear as well based on which service you select and which type of print calculator you're trying to reference. For now, we'll just use a no launch action service. And with this consulting service, we'll set up a base price of, say, $75. We can have this simulate a per hour billing method, or we can just have this be a flat cost. Additionally, we can have a minimum price set up of 75, which prevents it from going too low. We can have a setup fee, which for production purposes may need to account for machine setup costs. We can also add a unit cost, which helps determine the difference between sales revenue and cost for profit tracking. If we're assuming that this $75 base price is a per hour sale price, then we may just need to plug in an employee's average wage rate to help determine what the cost versus price profit would be. Run rate reflects how quickly a service can be completed in the eyes of our production system. If you have this set to a value like 5,000, then this is a 5,000 pieces per hour run speed. For a service like consulting, you may not need to worry about having a run rate, especially since it's something you may not be able to have log time against within the dynamic shop board or our scheduling system. And with that, we have an effective, simple service set up. There are other services that you can build that are a bit more complicated. If you do that, you can do so by, again, filling out the info as needed. In this case, fill out your base price accordingly. So in this case, we'll set the base price to a per piece cost. In this case, now what I've done is I've set up a base price, which is greater than my unit cost, so I can have some profit kicked in. I'm going to set up a $15 setup fee for a machine setup. and a $50 minimum price to trigger. I can also set up a run rate for my tabbing machine, so that way I know how many can be produced in the context of scheduling. And if I'd like to set up discounts to apply based on the quantity break, we can set up the quantity that we want the breaks to occur at and what the discounts are. In this case, what this means is that from 0 to 999, my base price is honored. From 1,000 to 1,999, then this 8% is honored, and from 2,000 up, 10% is honored off the base price. In this case, we still have no launch action selected, and that's fine. There is another type of service that we can set up again, and that is our wizard-based services. For this example, let's take a look at the one that we selected a few minutes ago. This Canon service has a command of launching a service wizard. This service wizard will take the base price of the service and begin applying different prices based on the wizard's manipulated values. It will then add in a setup fee, and then it will check to apply a volume percentage discount based on the quantity of pieces that are logged on the task. Finally, a minimum price will kick in if that minimum price is not met after the base price plus wizard modifiers plus a setup fee minus the discount don't exceed it. Once you select the action of launching a service wizard, you can pick the wizard from this list. The list of available wizards can be adjusted from your admin menu's service wizard submenu. In here, you'll see a list of all of your currently active wizards. You can create new wizards by filling in an option in this bottom gray row. For instance, like you see, I have my pricing 1 of 1, and I have a pricing 2 of 2 to consider. Or I can just fill in one that you can name appropriately, like my inkjet catalog service, my digital print setup options, which don't have a number to tie them to others. Our category here is effectively the name of the wizard. The description is a choice detail of the wizard that we're looking at. And finally, the instruction that tells your user what to do. If you need to edit these after creating one, by filling in this information and hitting save, you can click the pencil icon here on the right. And in this, you can change up information. Now, all this info is the wizard option itself. The choices within the options come from the service wizard expanded menu. In this case, if I were to expand my digital printing 1 of 4 for job type, you see that I have some choices here. These choices can be created by filling in options here in the bottom gray menu, just like we saw in the table below. Note in here, though, that things are a little bit different. In this menu, we're filling out the choices that appear. We're also filling in if there's a run rate expression and run rate variance, what those would be. These two combined adjust the production speed of the service. So if you have, say, 3,200 pieces per hour, and your run rate expression and variance are the multiplier, and then a number 1, then your run rate for your service is not actually changed. You may have work that results in your project taking longer to do. In this case, for my simplex or duplex operation, we'll see that I'm multiplying the run speed by 0.5. This is therefore halving the run rate that is attached to the service at the starting level. This effectively indicates that our run rate will be halved. And you can do the same thing like we're doing with the run rate expression here with the price. There's a price expression and a price variance. And as you fill out those choices, then based on the selection you make, the base price of the service, accounting for the modifiers before it, will then be adjusted accordingly. For example, if we have a service that has a base price of 5 cents per piece, regardless of whichever option we select at this stage of the wizard, that 5 cents per piece sticks. For our second series, again, no matter what choice we pick, our 5 cents per piece will stick. But then in our third series of options, if we were to select coded text for our material, then we'll see the price will change from 5 cents to 15 cents because of the addition of a dime to that current sum total. The variance input allows you to plug in what that value would be, and it's typically used for an option like an other or a miscellaneous, which you don't have a default value that you can plug in. Finally, the cost is accounted for in the same way that the price is. The price expression will add or multiply to the cost accordingly. After all these options are filled out entirely, then you may have a series of wizards that you want to have applied based on whatever service you're picking. The services themselves, if they're set to launch a wizard, allow you to select the service wizard number. When you pick your service wizard, we'll go just back to the stock we usually pull enough and look at. We'll reference a wizard number to begin with. In the case of this, we'll select one of our print services. And based on the option I pick, we can see that the wizard ID for the starting wizard is 101. And we can see that this is listed right here, where we have the identification of job type and choose job type as the category headers. And if we expand our list, we'll see the 3 different options that we have listed are there. The reason they're in this order is because of the sort order number. As you create new options, you may need to resort your wizard options so that way they appear in the order that you need. You can always adjust your row by modifying the price or the cost or the run rate as needed, but also the sort order to change how they appear in reference to each other. And after you make a choice, you'll see that there's a successor number here of 102. This comes from this drop down here on the wizard line item. And once you make that selection, then you'll be brought into the next wizard of the series, where you can keep making your adjustments all the way down until you get to the one that, well, completed. In this case, if I pick my book printing, I now have my 2 choices that lead to 2 different wizards. By picking the simplex, it brings me down another line of choices. And finally, when we get to the point in which a wizard successor is 0, what that means is that the wizard has completed itself, and upon selection, you'll be done with the service. It'll add itself, calculate everything together, add in the setup fee, check for any volume price break, and then finally apply a minimum price if necessary. Building wizards can be tricky because you have to envision what the price will be at the end of your series of choices. So that if you have small elements of a service that modify the cost or modify the price, you need to know what those exact modifiers are. That way everything will calculate out accordingly for what you need it to. After you've created your services and applied any wizards to them that are necessary, be it a folding service, production related to printing, etc. You then look in the CRM. In here, within your customer account, you can find the service or services themselves. For pricing, under the pricing tab, in here, you can select one or more services with our consulting service here. And you'll see that the base price and minimum price are carried in from the admin menu. You can apply a new rate, which overrides the base price here. Alternatively, you can apply a discount. You can only have one of these. The discount will apply itself to the admin level base price, and the rate will just override the base price. Also in here, you have a minimum price, which is defined from your admin menu, and that can be adjusted here as well. Now at this stage, if we were to select and enter an estimate or an order for this customer account, and we selected our consulting service, and we'll be charged with we'll charge our customer with a $55 fee. You can do these one at a time. However, if you have a list of services that you need to do this to for an entire customer, for instance, you need to apply a loyalty discount or a best friends discount to that customer account and all of the services in your site, you can do so by hitting this Load All Services button. This will bring every service into your list. And from here, you can apply a percentage discount or markup to the service-based price that we see here. In this case, we'll try a 5% discount. We'll click the Apply Discount to All Services button. We'll be asked if we really want to do this. And if we hit OK, then we'll see the discount for 5%. We can apply to everything. Now, if you do have the need to adjust or remove some of these, you can add them all, but you can only delete them one at a time. So do make sure that you're adding these appropriately to your customers in question. Otherwise, you'll have a list of services that will require quite a bit of time to delete these modifications. There is another method of pricing, and that comes from our contract. Within the CRM, you can access the contract pricing search screen. In here, you can either create a new contract or modify a pre-existing one by clicking the blue text or the green button. If you need to apply a contract, what you'll do here is select your customer, fill the project name if necessary, and give a little bit of a description. From here, under the pricing submenu, you can select a service from your database. Depending on which you select, you'll be able to give it a new run rate. You can give it an overriding minimum price, and you can give it a setup fee to have added on top of the run rate. You can go one step further here, and in the contract level, you can assign quantity-based rates for that particular service. In this case, if we have a minimum quantity value from 0 to 1,000, then our rate may be slightly less. And we can set up our breaks to adjust and vary based on how we need them to. Quickly saving codes commits our rate. Now if we select our service, depending on what the quantity is, it will be applied. In this case, I did fill out a quantity minimum of 0 to 1,000 that is different from our rate that is here. For simplicity, I'll remove this one because it really wouldn't be recommended. What will happen now is that our 1,000 and 1 to 2,000 price will be honored once we hit that threshold, and if not, then this rate will be honored instead. At this point now, if we return back into an estimate, and we can either select our service or group of services from our respective departments and get those choices that we've made. Alternatively, we can, if applicable, add a contract to our estimate order. In this case, what you do is you simply select your project, hit save and close. Oops. And then once you've got your contract applied, then when you select your service that would have a contract price, that price is honored instead of the global one and instead of the one that's assigned just for the customer. Some admin or global menu controls that accommodate and adjust how things behave with the contract and customer specific pricing can be found in the global settings submenu. In here, under the estimate/orders menu, you can set up a factor that says only services associated with customer specific pricing can be assigned or selected on an estimate order. What this means is that if you have, say, 50 services and only 10 have been customized for a particular customer account, then only those 10 will even appear for selection. You can also choose to turn on contract pricing. And if it is on, then you'll have the same control for the contract pricing-based services, in that you can only select services from a contract on an estimate order if that estimate order has a contract assigned to it. In here, you also have the ability to control whether or not group billing info is copied from one order to the next. And that is as simple as just making sure this checkbox is checked. And lastly, we have this option to lock an order after export to an accounting system. What this means is that if an order is pushed out to be imported into another program like QuickBooks, once that has happened, regular users cannot go back in and adjust the order. That could cause all kinds of problems in giving your users an accounting list that doesn't match Midnight's data, importing that data into your accounting program, and then trying to figure out why the numbers are different between the two. The very last thing we'll look at today are a couple of reports that show us this pricing information that we've looked at. Under our sales reports, we have two available, the price sheet and price sheet export report. Either price sheet will just show you your general services. You can print this out if need be, and you can see what your services are based on the service type that they're grouped under. And then with the code, name, description, if applicable, you can see all the little bits and pieces of that service that may matter for pricing. In particular, you'll see the base price, minimum price, and setup fee, as well as whether or not a wizard is associated with it, and if it's prepared for accounting export, what the GLID and item code should be. Pretty much everything else is associated with production. However, you can see if a service is taxable and if there is a volume price break. You can't see what they are, but you can see whether or not a service has one, so you can review it if needed. The price sheet export report is built specifically for export into an an Excel file or something of the sort. In this case, it'll export cleanly. If you hit save, Microsoft Excel file, and push out your data only, attempt to open it, you'll be given a file that this looks clean. If you need to take a look at your service wizard setup en masse, well, you could do it from the admin menu. You just then go to your other report and look up the service wizard details. In here, you'll see a list of all of your widget options and their price variances. It's useful to help give you a picture of what structure you need to set up in order to account for your services wizards, if you haven't already done this. We don't see cost information in here, however, we will see that under our job costing report, specifically the job detail analysis and the profitability report when those are finished with our recent upgrades that we're working on preparing to deploy. And lastly, as you push data out from Midnight into your accounting program of choice, the accounting report here, AR exporter, accounting, reference export by date range, and GLID totals. These two reports will help give you a clear picture of what your billing stages are at, assuming you're exporting out of Midnight and into your accounting program. Make sure that everything is being associated correctly. In these cases, to confirm how they work, all you need to do is select the time period. And anything that's been extracted out will let you know by the GLID code what it is, as well as the total that goes with it, so you can compare it against your accounting program to make sure everything is right. That does cover pretty much everything for today's training. Do you know, as a reminder, this did not go over our print estimating pricing, as that is a whole different calculation method and has its own video time frame dedicated specifically to it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at support@printreach.com. Alternatively, you can give us a ring at area code 425-828-9495, extension 2. Thank you for attending my training today, and have a wonderful day.